I'll show you something. When I was 6, my first book, I used to watch Zorro on television. I was 6 years old when I did this, and these are pictures that Mum kept of what I used to do. This is when I was at school, but before that, when I started, it was 6B pencils on the wall. I just love drawing. That's what I like doing. I didn't want to do anything else. Mum was of the belief that art is fine, but you've got to have a real job. From about year 9, I was working at Woolies, doing the usual paying my way through to buy things. And while I was at school, I was drawing my teachers. And I sent off all all newspapers, all different portfolios and things of drawings I'd done. And I used to get these wonderful letters saying I'm copying someone else's style. But I did get to meet Ed Aragon. That was 1984. And Ed gave me I think it was the first proper cartoonist I ever met. And the local paper sent me a note back, please contact the editor-in-chief as soon as possible. So I rang and he wanted me to come in. And he'd had people sending in caricatures and cartoons, but he liked my stuff. And he offered to pay me a grand total of $40 per drawing. And I came back from Perth.
Yeah.
And that was in 87. And I went to a cartoonists gathering that James Kemsley put together down at Southern Forest near his house. And I met everyone there. I met Jim Russell, and I met John Thorby, I met Max Foley. Max, who was a big influence. I met Kemsley. You weren't there, unfortunately, but I met a lot of the cartoonists, but mainly New South Wales people. That were all there in the one place, and here I'm joking around with John Thorby, not realising he was the art director at News Limited.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you do? And I told him. He said, well, come in and see me, and I did that. And then he rang me up in September and said, would you like a job? So I started at News Limited in September 87. I mainly use these ones, the art line, the 0.6 and the 0.4.
Yeah.
And of course I use the brush and ink, which I use all the time. But the one thing you must never forget is the importance of that, which is great for putting highlights on eyes and things like that in caricatures.
Yes.
It's really, people just think it's for correcting mistakes. It's not.
No.
But what you used to do, when you used to have to correct mistakes, you had to use this white paint all the time.
Yeah.
Now I scan the cartoons in, and cartoons, there's a big distinction because I do a whole bunch of things. There's the caricatures I do, which are generally an A3 sized, which are with ink and gouache and whatever. And that's all very manual. But if I'm doing a cartoon for a magazine, I scan that in and then colour it. But I'll do all the correcting. All the stuff I used to do by hand with this, I do it on the computer. And that one has got, you might be able to see it, a bit of liquid paper here, corrections I'd made to change his clothing. I could do that on the computer, but I found there at this point in time it was just easier to do it there. Now I scan that in as line art, and the end product I add all these other bits and pieces. I like doing original caricatures on archival acid-free paper, and I get them custom framed, and the reaction's always good, very positive.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a cartoon, I'll do them in the computer, and I keep the original artwork. Barely resembles the finished cartoon. But I do gags all the time too.
Do you?
I don't do comic strips.
No.
I like to, if people want a comic strip, I refer them to people that do it professionally. I mean, I can do it.
No.
There's nothing you can't do, but there are things that I do better than others. I always start with the eyes because, now this is the thing, it's an unconscious decision. Start with the eyes just because I start with the eyes. There was no conscious decision behind it that I'm aware of, which means it was therefore unconscious if it was anything. But when I started teaching at the summer school of cartooning, I had to come up with reasons why I did things the way I did them. had to come up with a reason. Why do I start? Because people ask questions. Why do you always start with the eyes? And I had to come up with a reason. And my reasoning was, if you get this wrong, because the eye is the most important thing. If people don't want to be recognised, they have sunglasses on.
Yeah.
So the recognition factor for somebody is this.
Yeah.
Because we can grow beards, we can, we can lose hair or grey hair or whatever it is, but that never changes.
Yeah.
And that's how you tell people. And so I figure, well, if you get that bit right, then the rest of the drawing just, everything decreases in importance as the further out you go.
Yeah.
So, like Norman Hetherington's eyes last night, they're captivating. You want to draw them because they're just amazing. They're amazing, very descriptive eyes. And no one in the world's got eyes like Norman Hetherington.
You also got his wonderful chin.
Oh, that is just wonderful.
Yeah.
But the eyes are this amazing thing on him, and he's talking. One of the characters, Blackboard, has one eye doesn't open. When Norman's talking like this, it's quite funny. The first question I always get is, how long have you been doing this for? And I usually say, 3 minutes. Or today's my first day. Just try and nerve them. But I'm very wary that if a young kid sits down, like a really attractive 22-year-old sits down and I say, how long are you doing this for? I don't want to say 22 years, because that's exactly how old she is. I feel like a pedophile. But it really, I just say as soon as I finish school. I've been doing it since I left school, and it's true. I mean, it's that's the first question. The other questions are, do you do this full time? They just can't. They're not quite sure how that works. Are you able to do this full time? Do you always start with the eyes? Is always up there amongst the first 3 or 4 questions I get asked. I make a big point of saying that although this is the way I start with the eyes, it's not the only way. Because I was drawing with John Shakespeare, who's with the Herald. John Shakespeare draws the shape of the face first and fills the details in. Peter Brolman just works from the top down.
Oh, yes.
I said, how do you start? He said, I just start from the top and work down. And I think that's really fascinating. If someone's really good looking, I hate that. Because they're too regular. They look too regular. They've got, their features are all, not bland, but they're just perfectly formed. Geometrically perfect, and they're just hard because I like something that's a bit unbalanced. I was lucky to join newspapers when they still had typewriters and follow the progression through to computers. And it all took place in a period of 10 years.
Yes.
And I just happened to be in newspapers in those 10 years. But also, what I was lucky to be part of was that they had something they don't have now, and that was the opportunity for someone to join a newspaper in an art department. These days there is no art department and no opportunities for people who draw to join a newspaper and learn how to be a real cartoonist. That opportunity doesn't happen anymore. It is a great way of meeting people.
Yes.
Of any persuasion. It's a great way of meeting people, and I've met some wonderful people. I've met people who have become close friends.